Hi, and thank you for joining us on this very first edition of the Promo CMO Show. I'm RJ Hagel, your host and the Promo CMO. Just about every distributor can feel it. Expectations around promotional merchandise are accelerating at a rapid pace. It's no longer just about delivering the product, it's about delivering measurable ROI, driving engagement, and showing how merch fits into a client's overall marketing and engagement strategy. This show was created to help companies across the promotional industry connect the dots, build stronger brands, and use technology more intentionally to create efficiencies across teams and operations. This session is designed specifically for distributors who are being asked to do more strategy, more personalization, and more accountability for your clients' budgets and results, all while the pace of change continues to rapidly take shape. What we're seeing is that while digital channels are getting noisier and harder to break through, physical engagement and experiences supporting by gifting and tangible touchpoints are becoming a much more effective way to create meaningful and measurable connection. And that's what today's conversation is all about. It's not a demo, but a practical discussion on how expectations have shifted, where traditional gifting programs start to break down, and how distributors can evolve their role by connecting online and offline engagement more effectively. Today, I'm joined by Mika Kite, founder and CEO of Outgage, an engagement platform built to support that shift. Her background as a distributor is what makes this conversation especially relevant to where the industry is now. Mika, thank you so much for joining me. Before we dive into the details, I'd love to start with your story and just kind of take us back to what you were seeing when you started Outgage.
Well, thanks so much for having me, RJ. That was such a great intro. And I'm sure we can spend hours and hours talking about where the industry's going. And like you said, until recently, I was pretty much a distributor myself. So definitely seeing the shift in the market. A little bit about our story and how we came about with Outgage. Um, Years ago, I started a startup in the do it yourself crafts industry. We could go way back, but let's start from there. We were pretty much merchandising and helping YouTubers and Etsy sellers sell their own subscription kits to go along with their tutorial videos. So, uh, bridging the gap between offline and online with do it yourself crafts like how to make your own jewelry, room decor, stuff like that. One of our first investors at the time was AOL before they sold to Verizon. And they told us, well, you do creative kits. How about you guys do gifts for our next event? It sort of seemed obvious at the time because we were selling, let's say, a dozen per each YouTuber or influencer, and now they wanted 400 kits. And that was our first dip dip of the toes, if you will, in the distributorship industry. So we started doing very creative gifts for companies like AOL. And then I moved at the time from Los Angeles to San Francisco. We started working with other companies like Salesforce and Airbnb and Disney and Autodesk and Google and all the cool kids. My background is in marketing and business development. So when we were working with all these different companies, it was very obvious to me that each function and role within the companies were using gifting for different purposes. We didn't understand how huge the market was at the time. Obviously, it's gigantic. Um, but when you really piece it to different functions, we noticed that for instance, marketing and sales were using gifting as very much as a growth hacking tactic. So not only did they need the creative and executional side of things, but like you're saying now, they needed to tie it to ROI, improve engagement. And, as time went by, the more they were spending on anything, they needed to prove its worth in order to get more budgets. So in came Outgage. We closed the loop between the gifting aspect and not only creating and executing on the gifting campaigns themselves operationally, but we closed the loop with online engagement. So landing pages that were and are still actionable and measurable. And in turn, we developed best practices to use gifting as a marketing and sales channel, an engagement channel in general. So this could also obviously be used for events and HR, but just as an example, if somebody wanted a call, if somebody wanted to drive to more sales calls, they might have done a two-part mailer where the way that we view gifting, and I think that generally the market now views gifting is content. It's just content that's super memorable and um, and could be used as something that people actually keep and engage with. So what we've noticed is, for instance, if you want a sales call, maybe you're sending a two-part mailer. We've seen this done numerous times. So maybe it's a postcard that looks like a record, like an actual record. And if your prospects, who might be very high net worth prospects, take the call with you, they get a record player. Or smaller items like Get the Scoop was one concept that is super memorable for one of our customers at the time. They used it for both net new prospects and current customers. They sent out ice cream scoops together with freeze bowls that were branded. And if you wanted to get the scoop on their company and learn more, you needed to go into a landing page, set up a meeting through a very easy link that was tied to your account manager's calendar link, or learn more. It was branded and continued that same message. So, really, an overall cohesive experience. And if you did, you also got a gift card to an ice cream shop. And that gave them, I think, about 10% of their pipeline. Anyways, very memorable experiences and just using gifting as content that is measurable and actionable.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found really interesting at your product over other ones that I've seen is that so many people focus on trying to solve the gifting challenges. And what you're doing is taking the gifting and trying to solve marketing challenges, which is really the challenge that we're all trying to solve is our clients and their needs, not necessarily what the platforms specifically are after. And that itself is important, but I like that you've taken a little bit different angle and really honed in on what the needs are from the end user to be able to bring that all together, which is really where I'm starting to see the gap in what's happening today is the operational and resource complexities from the distributor standpoint. And then, of course, there's the end user, which is most important, the client needs for data pipeline and visibility on what's actually happening within their marketing pipelines. So it's very interesting. And from a marketing perspective, it's pretty clear that the promotional merchandise industry has moved beyond just being a giveaway, right? And being more focused on being a legitimate brand medium. And it's shown through so many different examples of like, viral videos that you see going on or people rushing to stores and waiting in line to make sure that they don't miss out on getting that next product. And so I love how this is all kind of taking shape. And while that's a positive shift, the spend from the clients comes with a cost of higher expectations, especially from a leadership and financial perspective, right? So marketing teams are looking for more support in their strategy and deeper engagement and more results. And then their financial and purchasing teams are kind of coming back and saying, well, prove this to me, right? Show me the data that shows that this X number of dollar investment is good for the business. Traditionally, distributors, they've always been strong at product and distribution and relationships. And where the gap starts to appear is when the programs scale, volume increases, personalization becomes more complex, and coordination across fulfillment, decoration, timing becomes a lot harder to manage and much more expensive without the right systems and automations in place. And so at the same time, the enterprise teams are evolving to think in journeys and life cycles, creating like moments and experiences, and then not just giving away a product where it kind of feels like their budget may be just being dropped into a black hole. And it creates opportunities for distributors to move from those like transactional players to longer term engagement partners without being required to own enterprise data or manage pipelines. And then, obviously it gives them the opportunity to get involved if they want to, but your product itself helps all of that so people don't feel like they have to invest there.
Yeah, I'll close the loop on that because I don't think that I actually mentioned it before. But as you mentioned, we were a distributor ourselves while we were also doing the SaaS product. And we came to understand, like you're saying, that the market is so large and what distributors do and do well is the execution. They know that they have to do, a lot of them already at least, do a lot of the creative and a lot of customer successing. That support is super important to the customers, and they own the relationship with the customers. And now their customers are saying, hey, you already do our stores or you already do our events. They're expecting more from the distributors, or they'd like to do more and stay in one place. And how do the distributors also, on the other hand, create that stickiness, not only by holding the relationship with their champion in hopes that they stay there, but also actually integrate into their systems. And that's when we understood we want to take a step back from distributorship, since it's such a business to its own right and
Mhm.
has so many hardships to it. And we would love to double down on the SaaS, and that's why we're now white labeling for distributors. And I think where that comes into play for distributors, like you're starting to say, is they don't have to build from scratch tech. We already have best practices and a lot of data to bring them there, and we integrate into the end customer system. So this is a standalone system that can help them with the creation, the sending, the delivery, closing the loop with the landing pages that are real time and customizable, but also getting real time measurements. And they could integrate it into their marketing automation platforms, their CRMs, and soon also their HR systems, and
That's great.
really just be part of the system. We really think that from what we've been seeing with at least customers, there's a push to also consolidate vendors. And I think the more you can do for your customer, the longer you stay with them. And maybe you're the only one who stays with them eventually.
Absolutely. So from a programmatic perspective, or even just a program perspective, where do you start to see the distributor programs break down in the traditional gifting platform? We have the measurement, we have the ability to be able to prove data and pipeline personalization. I know is another important part of this. Being able to pick and choose something that maybe is more relevant, or in the case of apparel or something like that, where it's being able to select a specific style, or something along those lines. Are there other areas that you start to see traditional programs breaking down as you continue to build Outgage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like you said, there's a higher standard that we need to hit in the market. So the expectations are really high to really hit a lot of the points. The market is becoming very, very smart. And also, there are some SaaS products out there that are also their own distributors that are going against all the rest of the distributors and winning a piece of the market now, right? So the end customers, there are strategies that they go by. If we just zoom in on marketing, for instance, there's account-based marketing that's already gaining so much traction that there are functions around that strategy. There are ABM marketers. Field marketing will play into it. Depends what we're looking at. But if we're looking at SaaS players, for instance, they already have functions that have a strategy that will also use gifting as an engagement tool, because what they're really doing is understanding that relationships matter. They're going after the decision makers, and they're breaking that down into tactics of one to many, one to few, one to one. And for each of them, we'll see that there's a whole strategy around it. First of all, best practices there, but also who in the company owns it. Is it sales led? Is it marketing led? And we've seen the ins and outs of it in Outgage. We've built workflows and best practice templates, and we evolve with the data, and AI is helping us bring those best practices into place. So even if distributors weren't there before, they can now come in with a very smart start and best practices for their customers to have predictive creative. So, off the bat, I would say they need to be able to show the measurements. They need to have a high level of customization, not only with the gifts, but also with online tie in, and understand that this is a journey. It's not a standalone tactic, because marketing has evolved to the point where everything is so noisy that we need much more touch points than we used to. If we used to say, a campaign needs 6 to 9 touch points for awareness, we're now talking about probably 16 to 30 uh, to get in front of people. And that needs to speak the same language. Otherwise, you're losing the people. So it's the customization level. Like you're saying, it's even the personalization level. We're seeing mass personalization, not only with the gifts that may or may not be needed to be mass personalized depending on the goal itself. Are we doing one to one? Then, yes, maybe I need to give RJ something that I know RJ likes, because then he feels seen and we build that relationship between us as a salesperson to my end user. But if I'm doing a one to many play and I'm just trying to bring into awareness, for instance, a new product line, then maybe the gift is trying to show something about that product. Like, hey, we can put, just taking what I gave earlier, we're putting a twist on gifting, and or we're spinning gifting, and we do something with the record player. So, the personalization level could also just be in the print itself and the digital, and that still has that personal touch, while you as a distributor don't need to do one gifts like on when you're talking about a 500 or 2,000 person campaign, depending on the goal. Operationally, there's an expectation to be integrated into the systems. So, this is a touch point that could be streamlined along with other touch points. You can receive contacts. It could be a trigger based campaign. So, maybe these are certain customers that hit a milestone and get a gift. You need to be in their marketing automation platforms to do that. You need to receive the data of not only has this gift shipped, but what impact did it have? Was there engagement? And that needs to be put back into their systems so they can follow up accordingly. And then just looking at engagement optimization, there are a lot of points along the way. Contact management. Are you helping them? Are you a true partner that's helping them deduplicate the campaign like they're used to with other marketing channels? We can get into some nitty gritties like that, but you get the point. There's a lot to understand from the engagement side, and we happen to use gifts for it, and gifts are probably the best form of marketing content for those high touch audience members that you're trying to get to, but it needs to be done well as part of a journey.
Sure, absolutely. So as we're talking about gifts in particular, like thinking about the product itself, one of the things that we talked about was, so we have physical gifts like promotional or merchandise type items that most of this audience is going to be focused on. But then you also mentioned about e-gifts and the ability to add customized print and some other things to the experience in all of this. Can you talk a little bit more about like how you've been able to operationally integrate some of the workings of the platform to make sure it handles traditional gifting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I'm sure other distributors felt this during COVID, we needed to get a little creative and see how we can still be relevant in a world that people didn't know if people were going to the office, things like that. And that's how we happened upon understanding that our customers are expecting one partner to fulfill all their gifting needs. From a physical gifting standpoint, our platform contains a marketplace that's integratable with really any vendor that the distributors are using, or any marketplace that the distributors are using. But also from an e-gift standpoint, like we mentioned before, like the gift cards, we see it being used for, let's say you're inviting people to a webinar. and the first 2,000 people to RSVP and attend will receive an e-gift. You don't know where they're at. So it'd be one landing page with a global e-gift selection, which we have that solution, obviously, one of many templates that we've already built out and best practices for different use cases. Besides that, what else? Donations and obviously any other thing that has to do with the gift needs. We have a gift calculator that considers any pricing algorithm the distributor would like to put on their gifts, packaging, print items, and that just makes for an easier user experience for the end customer where they're really looking for as much flexibility and confidence and knowledge and upfrontness versus vague, we'll get back to you with pricing as much as we can, obviously, be checked, but they're looking for things that are quicker. The user experience has been expected to be elevated also on that side of things. And just to give you a little anecdote of the expectations of customers about budgets, for instance, we had a customer when we were doing this direct that changed their marketing executive. And I don't remember if it was the CMO or the VP, but at the time, this person came from digital marketing and wanted to cut a lot of the gifting program. And luckily, they were using Outgage at the time, so they had a lot of data. The departments had a lot of data in terms of what engagement rates they've had. And we've seen so many successes. We've seen over 35% engagement with a lot of these campaigns that it was super easy for them to bring forward within a week to this person the data. And that not only kept the budget, it actually enhanced it for the year forward.
That's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. You hit so many different touch points. So let me just kind of do a quick recap of kind of where we went because there's so much good stuff there. All right. So basically, I think the most important thing people start with is the product, right? Your platform incorporate physical products like obviously merchandise, but the donations and the gift cards and other types of things that are kind of more electronically managed. It's so important too because now you can not focus so heavily on just the product. You can sell solutions and still make money doing something more than just selling the product itself because we're now selling digital solutions, right? You got SaaS here, right? There's a little bit different in the way that we're approaching this topic. And then you have the delivery component of it, which is being able to manage all of the data pipeline and get orders through the systems and be able to match the data all the way through. You've got engagement built in your platform. So you've got branded landing pages, call to actions. You can incorporate meeting links and surveys and other real critical pieces like that. You can measure in real time what's happening and be able to send the data to clients and users, CRM systems, Salesforce, HubSpot, like all of the big companies that are included here, which is another thing that I really enjoy is this, that you're not focused, smaller solutions, you've really been able to be more open source with getting the data that you need and being able to pass back and forth. And then, of course, your A/B testing and kind of your overall workflow insights. So, which is great. So basically, we've seen so far that you built Outgage to turn merch from kind of be like a traditional line item or a specific one-off transaction into more of a revenue generating engagement channel that companies can optimize for their own business and for their clients. So it's not just about the operational challenges; it's opening new opportunities with marketing to be able to grow your revenue base and your relationship with them. All right. So tell me a little bit more specifically. We talked a little bit about some different use cases. So specifically for people getting started, where have you seen distributors be most successful with approaching their clients?
Right. With distributors, I see a couple of paths being most successful. They're, again, they own the relationships. They know their customers in and out. Let's say if they have SaaS customers that have relevant marketing functions, that would be account-based marketing, field marketing, really any B2B outbound marketer. I would say that's an easy expansion to sort of ask their champions if they're, for instance, doing the stores or anything else to see if it would be relevant to speak with marketing and understand their needs. Usually, the gifting is going to align in one way or 50 ways. We've seen companies that do 50 or more campaigns a year. Another one, which would be a super simple go to, is events, for instance. So, if you have customers that are doing events who doesn't want to actually prove engagement and get more engagement there, we've seen anything from pre event invites to get people to come to your booth. We actually had a really good campaign once that somebody sent out. This was a for restaurants and food merchants, and they sent out a pizza box in their colors with a postcard. So super cheap, also relevant to gifts. But it looked like a pizza with a cutout slice that said, "Hey, coming to the event, come meet us at this and this booth, or set up a time with us here and get a $25 food delivery e-gift." And on the other side, it also had like just one slice of pizza and it said, "Not coming to the event, set up a time with us here and get a $25, you know,
That's
food."
great. So you basically were able to bake in like a call to action either way. So you're not alienating anybody who's receiving the communication up front.
Yeah, exactly. And already getting engagement. So that was really good pre event. During event, event activation. So if you know who you're targeting at the booths, everybody's spending the 35 to 50K at the event and bringing the swag, but then you're still one booth of many. How do you actually get in front of your people? So if I'm going after the VPs of marketing, maybe I want to give them something a little bit nicer and memorable. So for them, I'll give a QR code to go to a nicer gift choice landing page, and then the distributor can send them directly one of three nice gifts 1 to 2 weeks after the event. Stay top of mind. Maybe pair it with a call to action, like setting up a meeting, filling out a survey, still having that engagement with them, but also just the need to reciprocate after the event and staying there versus, just staying at the event. And then post event engagements, we've seen a post event send. This was actually really cool. We had this done numerous times for different reasons, but this customer sent out a locked gift, and in order to unlock it, you needed to speak with them. Anyways, they got 92% engagement post. Yeah.
That's great. No, it's amazing too because sometimes even the way we measure engagement can always be viewed in one way, and this gives you insights to look at it in different ways. I also like that you're approaching more of the account-based marketing, so you're dealing with clients that are typically pre-qualified, or in some cases, and your platform allows and you mentioned about the VP is like have different people within different roles maybe receive different items, even in the same account, depending on who they are and their influence and their ability to make change. So I love that.
Yeah, tiered
So
gift, referral campaigns, different call to actions, or maybe similar, maybe invite different people to an office hour. So yeah, you could really play with it.
yeah, no, that's great. So we've talked about events, and then we have HR and team building. You were talking about with COVID, and I think everybody remembers that. But the same feeling still exists, in that people are looking for more engagement with their employees, and not just from a marketing lens too, which is great. And then you got webinars, you got ABM campaigns or account based marketing for people who are not as familiar with that. You have referral and advocacy programs, I think, that are great. Are there other opportunities that you've seen more recently that maybe haven't been kind of seen from the biggest perspective, or just opportunities that you see for growth, basically?
I mean, I think the easiest, besides the two examples that we just gave with going to marketing, I would just ask their customers if they have another SaaS gift vendor, understand if they're happy with them or what they're missing, and then see if there's an opportunity for them to be helpful there. Because their customers, if they're using somebody, they're likely missing one piece or another, and there's your opportunity right there. You already have the relationship. Just try to give them more of what they need that you don't necessarily have in house now, but you could provide it for them and be the best partner that you could.
Sure. Absolutely. So let's kind of shift the conversation to more the like the relevance to today. Looking at this is being recorded in December. 2026 starts in about a week and a half from now. So I think a lot of people are anxious to kind of shake off 2025 and see what 2026 has to in store. You have big things. AI has certainly probably been the biggest conversation this year, as well as tariffs and a few other things. One of the things that I've seen is that the industry is doing exceptionally well. I mean, I think if you were ask people, they're like they're feeling a little bit of pressure this year because of typically rising economic costs, and there's a lot of different points to that, right? But in reality, promotional and merchandise itself are growing in interest and becoming a true marketing medium. However, those friction points still exist in today's world. And the opportunity now is to unlock the automation and leveraging technology to make it feel like growth can be easier because you're not relying on people and broken systems to keep the conversation going and to really help these programs scale, especially for smaller distributors that may not have those resources. But the more importantly, I think the part that a lot of people focus on here is being able to build relevance with their customers. So, is there anything else? And we've touched on a couple of things. Is there anything else from a relevancy standpoint that you want to touch on how clients can position themselves to be more indispensable over time with their clients?
I think that's a really good point. Also, oh my God, I can't believe that 2025 is over and 2026 is starting. It passed by so fast. So maybe just as a resolution and understanding where we're at right now in the times, I think that we all know that technology fell on all of our heads from the sky pretty much in the past couple of years, and it's being just more widely adopted. Nobody wants to become the next blockbuster. I think that what we need to understand as an industry is obviously we need to be tech forward. We need to understand and talk with our customers about where they're at, not about their gifting needs, but their actual goals for their company. So, what are their HR goals? What are their marketing goals? And gifting is a means to an end, like any other engagement channel. And now we need to bridge the gap technologically, automate it, meet them where they're at, get into their systems, and hopefully we could be helpful and be a small piece of that. But I think that the distributors need to understand if they're not doing it, then somebody else is.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the things I think we've touched on so far. So we have rising costs. I think and it's not just rising costs, but it's compressed margins. I think is the more important thing. This a tool like yours allows the profitability to increase because you're now adding more overall value to the process. So you're not so reliant just on the product, but now you have other pieces of the puzzle. And if you include print and packaging and other types of things too, now it really tends to expand the opportunity for distributors.
Yeah, and you're cutting time, you're getting them uh the actual visibility to show that this works in a quicker way than what they could do themselves, if at all, because they would need to piecemeal these solutions together. You're becoming indispensable. If you can prove that your gifts are turning them a buck at the end of the day and much more than that, obviously that's a downplay of what it is. You're gold.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're basically helping to defend yourself by being a just overall bigger part of the value chain and resisting some of that vendor consolidation that's also happening too. So you become the choice instead of the one who's looking to be cut. And then I think really the most important part that people miss is really that process automation. It's giving your clients the data, but it's also managing and automating the entire workflow because a lot of times people say, "Oh, it's hard to invest because I got to invest here, then I got to hire somebody to run the program." This allows an investment without necessarily having to scale. And I think that's really, really important in all of this too.
Million percent. And it's the proactiveness also. Like you as a distributor are proactively giving them the best practices, becoming their partner versus waiting for them to say, "Hey, I need 10,000 of these because there's so much more that you could be helpful with. They just don't know what the solution is yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mika. It's amazing what you've been able to cover and kind of like how Outgage was really built to help with making merchandise more of an embedded strategy instead of trying to continue to kind of push it as kind of this side piece.
Thanks for saying that, and thanks for having me, RJ. This was great.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks again. And just in closing, our roles in the promotional industry are evolving, and it's not because merchandise has really lost its relevance. It's actually the opposite. It's because expectations have risen. It's clear that enterprise clients value the product, but increasingly, they're also valuing partners who can connect that product to brand engagement, to measurable outcomes, and then prove the impact that they're making across their client's business. And that's really what the shift is about. It's not about like chasing trends or a new software or services that a distributor doesn't feel comfortable handling. It's about removing the friction, creating clarity, and helping clients operate more efficiently and build overall different relationships. And that's where solutions like Outgage really come into play, is by supporting modern engagement without adding headcount or complexity, which is, to me, is one of the most important pieces. And then distributors can also show up differently and simplify the experience. As I said, remove the friction and step in as a more valuable partner, all while streamlining their own operations too, which is another critical component here. So for those listening, if today's conversation resonated, the next step isn't rushing into anything. It's about continuing the conversation, thinking bigger and exploring what this could look like within your own business and deciding how you want to evolve in 2026 with your clients as their expectations continue to rise. So Mika, thank you again. And to everybody listening, this shift creates a real opportunity for distributors who want to show up differently for their clients and step into what's next. And we'll continue exploring that on future episodes of the Promo CMO Show. Thank you.